Thank you, Deep Roy Clywyd. I've got to admit, I have considerable sympathy for the Deputy Minister. Not only do you debate matters which are within your remit, but it now seems that you have to waste valuable time debating issues that you have no influence over whatsoever. Indeed, I believe the Minister has previously gone on record to say that the 4-day working week is not devolved and is outside the remit of this Welsh Government. However, as responsible opposition, my party believes that it is our duty to engage with all matters within this chamber, even if the only perceivable outcome to this debate is that Plaid Cymru will have something to put in their leaflets. As such, Deep Roy Clywyd, I'd like to formally move the amendments tabled in the name of my colleague, Darren Miller. Our position is that the proposals for a 4-day working week are not grounded in reality, because it entirely relies on the assumption that productivity, the rate of work per hour, will be increased if employees work fewer hours on the same pay. How can doctors, nurses, firemen, teachers, ambulance drivers be more productive than they already are? Measuring productivity is a very complicated subject.
Will the member take an intervention?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Joel. I was just wondering if Joel would agree with me that at the time when they were looking to implement a weekend and paid holidays, there were probably similar people saying exactly the same as you are, that it's unrealistic and unattainable.
Well, I'm not necessarily concerned with the past. I'm more concerned about the present and the future. Measuring productivity is a very complicated subject, and there's no linear correlation to working less, being paid the same and increased productivity. If productivity is increased, then it simply means that the employee will have to do 5 days' work in 4 days. Actually, these proposals would, in my mind, be counterproductive for some, because as working hours become more intense, there would be less time for breaks and less time for movement between tasks and locations. Whilst very large companies may be able to reduce workloads with a reduction in number of working days, I argue that many smaller organisations would probably still expect the same workloads for the same pay. And so what a 4-day working week will ultimately do is create a divide where some workers in the public sector and large organisations would enjoy working less, while others will be worked harder in those 4 days in an effort to keep businesses open. In Utah, for example, the 4-day working week was abandoned in 2011 because although public sector workers enjoyed an extra day off, there were considerable complaints that people could just not access public services. Also, these proposals could have little benefit in terms of health and well-being for those workers on the lowest pay, who may be tempted to seek additional employment on the extra day they would normally have worked. There is the issue that many organisations, including our National Health Service, will probably struggle to meet demand if their staff work fewer hours. Likewise, in order to make available the same operating hours, they might well struggle to employ sufficiently qualified staff who are prepared to work part-time, which would then affect the overall availability of services. This raises another important question as to whether school children would also be educated 4 days a week, or would schools have to employ a full set of qualified teaching staff for just 1 day? I note that Plaid Cymru and Luke mentioned Iceland, but that country's proposal is to actually reduce the average working week from 40 hours to around 36 hours without a reduction in pay. According to the UK Office of National Statistics, the average working week in the UK just before COVID was 36.9 hours. So in theory, Iceland is really just bringing in their working hours in alignment with other countries. Finally, may I add that enforcing a 4-day working week onto workers is not conducive to a healthy society with the rights of choice. Sadly, many people only have their work colleagues as their social contacts and with whom they spend time with on a regular basis during working hours. Forcing them to lose 20% of their contact with others, in addition to making their working day more intense, will harm their mental health. There's no doubt in my mind. Proposing that the Welsh Government should trial a 4-day working week is meaningless and ultimately ill thought through. As I hope we have demonstrated, the Welsh Government has no remit for employment matters, which are reserved to the UK Government, and we should not be wasting our time debating motions such as this. That is why we have proposed our amendments. Thank you.